Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. It is Tuesday, May 19th, 2015, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here's a look at what's coming up tonight.
Tonight, we learned that during the Ferguson riots, protesters were getting handouts from George Soros, some getting $5,000 per month. And Hillary condescends to talk to the press. Kinda.
I might. I'll have to ponder it. But I will put it on my list.
All that and more on tonight's InfoWars Nightly News.
A few weeks ago, I did an in-depth report on what they're not telling you about the Baltimore riots. It received a lot of mixed reviews. A lot of people called me a racist for pointing out the fact that the very real, very raw rage of the protesters was being co-opted by race baiters and funneled into an establishment agenda. Well, the truth hurts. Well, if you needed any more proof, a leaked list shows that Ferguson protesters were paid by a Soros front group. This is Missourians Organizing for Reform and Empowerment. Ironically, the details came to light after activists protested outside the protest office of Moore last week in St. Louis. A sit-in was held to complain about the fact that activists hadn't been paid the money they were promised for taking part in demonstrations. In an effort to quell infighting, Moore was forced to release a list of who had been paid what. Tweets published by Moore also confirmed that the organization hired people to protest. As the Washington Times revealed, Moore was just one of the groups that received a share of the $33 million invested by billionaire George Soros into the Black Lives Matter movement. This just further underscores the fact that there is nothing grassroots about this movement. Black Lives Matter is a phony AstroTurf campaign funded by the establishment. This is why it has only served to discredit opposition to the genuine problem of police brutality. Unfortunately, the authentic rage that bubbled out of Ferguson, Missouri last year was swiftly co-opted by big money and powerful left-wing interests. Activists have even started a hashtag online, cut the checks, in order to demand their money. Now, it appears that some more notable activists like D. Ray McKesson has been paid while others haven't been paid, and this is causing even further infighting. And T-Dubbo, who was the founder of another group organizing protesters as well, one of the recipients of some more Soros funding, he seemed to indicate that because all of these activists were fighting over getting paid just $2,700 each to stop making a fuss, he's saying that now Moore is going to pull away from some of their events in Ferguson over the summer. It's going to affect their ability to protest in other places over the summer. And it'll also mean that they're not going to be receiving any more jail support. So no one is going to be bailing them out. Obviously, Jay-Z and Beyonce will take care of that. We're learning that they did bail out some of those protesters there in Baltimore. But that's just it. That's the point. Whoever controls the money controls the protests. So that's what's going to happen. Meanwhile, in Baltimore, we're seeing an alarming spike in violence. Officials there are reporting dozens of shootings and murders in the past few weeks following the riots. Some people are concerned that police are hesitant to crack down after 6 officers were charged in the death of Freddie Gray. Some residents report not seeing a single officer in Sandtown since the riots happened. And Sandtown is an area that was once at the heart of April's unrest. Community leaders say curbing the violence means solving a systemic problem. Without jobs and possibilities, kids feel like they have no alternative, so they've got to turn to violence. And Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake says it's uncertain if the spike in crime is due to low police morale, but in the meantime, community leaders are asking residents to step up and do their part to keep their neighborhoods safe. And with these Baltimore riots fresh in everyone's mind and the outcomes of 3 high-profile police shootings in Cleveland, that city as well is preparing for some potential unrest. Now, city officials there are also reaching out to community leaders to help keep these protests peaceful. Police and city leaders have assembled neighborhood outreach teams, including religious leaders, sports groups, motorcycle club members, and former gang members to build relationships, keep their ears to the ground and listen for any rumors of any planned unrest. A member of the city's Community Relations Board, Edwin Paris, said he doesn't really get the sense that this city is the type of city that's going to rise up and cause havoc. But as rumors of protesters visiting from Baltimore and Ferguson continue to swirl, he says that he is concerned about the prospect of outside agitators using these protests as a cover to cause unrest. And we are getting reports that buses are indeed bringing in some Ferguson protesters, and Cleveland PD is telling everyone they need all boots on the ground. No one's getting any paid time off until all of this is settled.
Jakari Jackson and Joe Biggs in Cleveland, Ohio, are right outside the Justice Center, which also encompasses the police headquarters. We are awaiting the verdict to see what's going to happen with Officer Brelo. As you can see right now, things are very peaceful. They have off and on sporadic protests, but nothing huge that we've been able to witness thus far. As you can see, no National Guard, no SWAT teams. Now, there are people concerned. Many of the community leaders are reaching out to everybody possible, which includes biker clubs. You guys probably heard about the shooting in Waco the other day, so they even reaching out to the biker clubs, youth brigades, anybody they can talk to who they think may be able to calm the situation down, and that is the case right now. Everything seems to be very calm, very collected. Only time will tell when they release the verdict. They said we'll get it today at the earliest. So I'm very curious how it's going to work out, especially when you consider the Cleveland Cavaliers are now in the NBA Finals. I believe their first game is tomorrow, which is going to bring a lot more people into the city. So if they decide to release it later in the week, they'll have that to contend with.
Joe Biggs here with Infowars.com. Now I'm here with James Fuqua, and we were just talking about the Michael Brelo case and trying to find out what people think about it. So what's your take on this entire case and what the outcome's going to be?
Well, here again, the problem is deeply rooted, and this is another example of a possible explosion predicated on that. But I do agree that the longer you prolong it, the more radical the explosion is going to be, okay? Whether it's guilty or not guilty, there's going to be opposition. I am a firm believer that if you go ahead and expedite it and let the chips fall where they may, we'd be better off as a society and a community. But to brace us for an outcome is almost a setup.
Well, yeah, because it's already been going on 3 years now, and then they came out and said, all right, it's going to be next week, and now we don't know when it's going to happen. So that's what's making it worse.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that because it is what it is, and we're hoping and praying that we can do it with decency and in order, regardless of what the outcome is. No one's going to be totally pro, and no one's going to be totally against it. So I'm one that's kind of sitting back hoping that everything comes out all right with as little destruction as possible. We don't need buildings burned down. We don't need cars burned down. We don't need children's lives in danger. But I do agree we need to bring this to a halt, though.
All right, well, thank you for your time today.
Jakari Jackson here in Cleveland, Ohio. Of course, we're waiting the verdict of the Brelo case. But in the meantime, I want to talk about stuff that's free. As you can see on my shoulder, there's a giant stamp that says free. And I guess people like George Soros wanted to use that when he actually got the bill for sending violent people into towns like Ferguson, Missouri to wreak their havoc. Because we have the article on the site today done by Paul Joseph Watson talking about how there's a animosity, there's a Twitter campaign, there are people outside protesting in Ferguson, Missouri, and not so much police brutality. These are people who were paid, funded by George Soros to go in there and kick up drama in that city. And now the bill is coming due, and Soros wants to give them a giant free stamp. But as he's finding out, the people aren't so happy. They said, hey, I went out here, I wreaked your havoc, I held your signs, I did all the stupid stuff you wanted me to do, and now when it comes time to pay the piper, you're saying that everything should be free. So we'll bring you more updates as they develop here in the city of Cleveland. Jakari Jackson, Joe Biggs. You can find more reports on the Alex Jones channel on YouTube.
Take a look at how Hillary hide-and-seek Clinton responded to a Fox News reporter's request for her to finally take a question.
Yeah, wait. Yeah, maybe when I finish talking to the people here. How's that? I might. I'll have to ponder it, but I will put it on my list for due consideration.
Good Lord, she is such a snarky witch. Can you imagine having to listen to her give a weekly address for 4 years? You think President Obama is bad with press access right now? Look at how Hillary has run her campaign. I can't imagine her taking any hard-hitting questions from the White House press corps if indeed she becomes the next president. Now, she did actually respond to reporters today once it was clear that reporters have stopped asking her what she had for lunch. Now they're finally going to start hitting her. So she wanted to get out in front of it. So she did respond, take some questions from the press today, and she once again reiterated the fact that she really wants her emails to be made public. Gosh, if I really wanted my emails to be made public, maybe I shouldn't have sent them out printed in boxes so that the State Department would have to hire 12 full-time employees to sift through each and every page, some of which are double-sided. She might as well have just sent them out in Braille. Very clever, Mrs. Clinton. Andrew Malcolm at Investors Business Daily reports that this is our new normal. Obama tweets and Hillary Clinton chit-chats. Yesterday, we learned that the State Department plans to release Hillary Clinton's emails in January 2016. The proposal came Monday night in a document related to a FOIA lawsuit Vice News filed in January. They were seeking all of Clinton's emails. 12 state staffers have been assigned full-time to reviewing the Clinton emails, which were provided on paper by Clinton in bankers' boxes. State says the scanning process took 5 weeks and was complicated by some of the printouts of Clinton emails being double-sided.
I have said repeatedly, I want those emails out. Nobody has a bigger interest in getting them released than I do.
State Department officials have cited the need to prioritize this Clinton email project because the Iowa caucuses are due to be held February 1st, 2016. That's just 2 weeks after their proposed release. How convenient. Well, today a federal judge rejected that plan, saying the state must propose a new schedule that involves disclosures of a batch of the emails every 60 days. Clinton's emails have been a subject of intense interest from a House committee investigating the Benghazi attacks. Some of the emails revealed that Clinton forwarded unsubstantiated intelligence on Libya to top officials at the State Department from Sidney Blumenthal. Blumenthal was not an employee of the State Department, rather a longtime family ally, an employee of the Clinton Foundation at the time. Blumenthal was working on business ventures in Libya that would have required State Department permits. The Benghazi Committee hopes to ask Blumenthal who, if anyone, was paying him to prepare these memos for Mrs. Clinton, and whether they were among his responsibilities at the Clinton Foundation. Investigators are also interested in whether the planned business venture in Libya posed any potential conflicts for Mr. Blumenthal or Mrs. Clinton. Proposed business partners sought meetings with Clinton aides in early 2012. Ramadi fell over the weekend to terrorist troops of ISIS, but thank goodness the weekend weather enabled President Obama to get in a game of golf. And then on Monday, quick, look over there. Obama debuted his very own Twitter page. Hillary Clinton, who is engulfed in scandal, hosted yet another small event in Iowa with media access so controlled the Secret Service parked cars to prevent a clear TV viewing of her entering the building. And we're also getting reports that the Secret Service raced 95 miles per hour down the road to avoid any run-ins with the press. Now, Clinton had nothing to say about the ongoing collapse of the Iraqi army. Clinton, if you'll recall, was Secretary of State at the time when all U.S. troops left Iraq and a large power vacuum.
What difference at this point does it make?
He's a good guy to me. Guess what? He's my friend. Guess what? I don't condone what he does, but as far as a person to person, he's my friend.
Kim Jong-un, 32-year-old North Korean leader of 4 years, recently executed his defense chief in front of hundreds of people with an anti-aircraft gun. Apparently, Defense Minister Hyung Yong-chol fell asleep in meetings and backtalked one too many times. Kim Jong-un had Chol placed just 100 feet in front of a ZPU-4 anti-aircraft gun despite its 26,000-foot range. Chol was then brutally annihilated while hundreds of military personnel reveled in the bloodshed unleashed during Jong-un's continuing reign of terror. A defector recently divulged the execution of Jong-un's aunt in May of 2014. The supreme leader ordered his senior officials to have her poisoned to death. It turns out that Kim Jong-un's aunt, Kim Kyung-hui, was a little upset after Kim Jong-un had her husband, Jong-un's uncle and mentor, stripped naked, thrown into a cage, and eaten alive by a pack of ravenous dogs. Kim Jong-un's uncle had suggested that Kim focus on large-scale economic development rather than building a water park and a ski resort that Kim Jong-un then had constructed after his aunt, uncles, and 30 of their advisors and helpers' assassinations. The United Nations proposed a commission of inquiry on alleged human rights violations back in 2013. With all the bleeding heart liberals tossing in their 2 cents every time you turn around, wouldn't it make sense that North Korea's human rights violations would be a major issue? Citizens are routinely rounded up, tortured via sleep deprivation, beatings with iron rods, and forced sitting or standing for hours, and regular sexual abuse of female detainees. Crimes against the state and crimes against the people are essentially the charges behind placing not just those accused of political crimes in jail, but everyone related to that person. Parents, spouse, children, even grandchildren. The camps these political prisoners are sent to are very similar to what transpired in Nazi Germany. Starvation, no medical care, lack of clothes and housing, torture, executions. South Korean officials estimate that 80,000 to 120,000 people may be imprisoned in one of the many Kwanlee-so camps. Now there are Japanese reports of widespread cannibalism due to the lack of food for the general populace.
With tens of millions of people starving, millions starving a year, Vanity Fair doing a report there admitting the only meat sold on city streets was little baby parts. And that's all the wealthy can hardly get is long ham, sweet pork, human meat.
It appears that if Hitler had been alive today, one would have to assume that our so-called leaders and plastic statesmen would have just ignored him.
We will respond proportionally, and we'll respond in a place and time and manner that we choose. It's not something that I will announce here today at a press conference.
Worse than that, my grandparents' generation would have never allowed themselves to have been subjected to legalized CIA propaganda humanizing Hitler to their generation once the prison camps were public knowledge. They would have just taken him out. Instead, Kim Jong-un's presence conditions the world to tolerate and even accept psychopathic, tyrannical domination.
So this is their plan, is to bankrupt you, is to dumb you down, is to poison you. Like you're a roach they're spraying with poison. On their power trip, they've decided we're just going to roll over and die. How about if we don't go along with that? How about if we identify them in their program instead of Hollywood stars and who's pregnant this week? See, the minute you start focusing on what's important and not on what they tells you important is game over.
John Bound, Infowars.com.
Social engineers' propaganda is so weak and perverse, a 5-year-old can see through it. That's why I asked my father if I could be part of the show ever since I was 5, and he's finally let me, so that together we can help each other break free of the Matrix. The truth is, I'm just one little person, just a little coal, a little ember in the fire of liberty. But if we all join together, we can become a roaring blaze in front of the establishment. So join me today. Waking up is so easy. Sometimes it's hard. All you've got to do is not be arrogant and pompous and realize that there's social engineering all around you. Just look at the city of London behind me. All that infrastructure, all that industry went into creating one city. That's basically what the government is doing with our propaganda, with the propaganda right now, trying to build a state based on lies and evil. Well, I'm not going to stand for it, and neither should you. One great way to break free in the Matrix is to understand lies.
Lies, 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 lies.
I know that sounds simple, but look at all the lies in the world that we, the people, accept, and the people that start the lies get away with.
What difference at this point does it make?
Look at Al Gore.
The Earth has a fever, and the fever is rising.
By 2013, he claimed, the ice caps would be all melted and the polar bears couldn't live anymore. What a lie.
Last September 21st, as the northern hemisphere tilted away from the sun, scientists reported with unprecedented alarm that the North Polar ice cap is, in their words, falling off a cliff. One study estimated that it could be completely gone during summer in less than 22 years. Another new study to be presented by U.S. Navy researchers later this week warns it could happen in as little as 7 years. 7 years from now.
And now, the quote-unquote inventor of the internet is back with NASA, and he claims this year that the South Pole will melt.
I am super duper serial.
The facts are in. The science is clear. Pay me money or the penguins shall die. Oh no, the penguins are doomed! The White House claims that gun crimes and gun murders are way, way up, but in reality, they're over 50% down.
Every day, every school, at every level. One thing that I think is clear with young people and with adults as well is that we just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
These are just two lies of the legions of lies that are marching right now upon our freedoms and taking away our rights. Are we going to stand for this? No. Go to Infowars.com and learn the truth. You are not a sheeple. You are free. And never forget, if you're watching this transmission, you are the resistance. That sounds kind of extremist, sir. Where's my carbon taxes? Pinguino!
And someday, when the world is rid of Man Bear Pig, everyone will say, "Thank you, Al Gore. You're super awesome."
That's it for the show tonight. If you're watching us on YouTube, please become a subscriber to the Alex Jones channel. We have finally made it past 1 million subscribers, and we absolutely appreciate it. Please share with all your friends, and you yourself hit the subscribe button. And also, you can head over to PPTV and become a subscriber there. Your subscription will get you instant access to over 18 years worth of content. The nightly news comes out in HD. And of course, you can share your username and password with up to 20 people at the same time. And we certainly appreciate you helping to run this operation. That's all thanks to you. We'll see you here again tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central.